Today, I want to share with you one of the most inspirational books that I've ever come across. This book, Resilience, it often does a better job of summing up my own life's philosophy better than I can. Whenever I read a great nonfiction book, I underline anything memorable, the information that pops and the stuff that I want to remember, all those passages that I want to reference again in the future, or if I happen to reread the book, I can kind of skim it and just get the best stuff. But boy, oh boy, I think I burned through about 3 pens with this book. I mean, just look at it. It's passage after passage after passage that I underlined in this book. So it was just eye-opening and inspiring. I mean, it might be easier to summarize what I didn't underline than what I did. Okay, so I want to crack this book open with you, and I want to share with you just a few of my absolute favorite pearls of wisdom that we can chew over and investigate. First off, any book that talks about a virtue such as resiliency, it needs to do an amazing job of defining that term. So here's what the book Resilience says. Quote, "Resilience is the virtue that enables people to move through hardship and become better. Because no one escapes pain, fear, and suffering. Yet from pain can come wisdom, from fear can come courage, and from suffering can come strength, if we have the virtue of resilience." End quote. See what I mean? I think that's about as perfect a summary of resilience, the virtue of resilience that I've ever come across. And here's a bit more. Quote, "Fear does not automatically lead to courage. Injury does not necessarily lead to insight, and hardship will not automatically make us better. Pain can break us or make us wiser. Suffering can destroy us or make us stronger. Fear can cripple us or make us more courageous. It is resilience that makes the difference." End quote. Hardships and struggle are unavoidable for everyone. It doesn't matter if you were born in a poor neighborhood or you were born a prince. The future for everyone will be full of both personal and society-wide disasters, emergencies, and heartache. Yeah, sure, some folks are born with more comforts and luxuries. An extreme example of this, like I said, would be like a prince. And it's easy to think they have a life to be envious of. But I promise you, even they struggle. It's a human condition. Perhaps they don't struggle paying the bills or finding a good paying job like most of us, but they have to deal with cutthroat politics and crushing expectations, right? The point is, no one can avoid future hardships. With a resilient mindset, you can use these hardships as rocket fuel to learn, to grow, and to overcome. Or you can let these inevitable hardships crush you. And that's what happens if you have a fragile mindset. You choose to wear a thick cloak of self-pity and victimhood. Fragile people, they stymie any real possibility to learn or to improve because they create excuses. And excuses, when held onto like an idol to be kept and cherished, are kryptonite to improvement and success. And that's why I think resilience is a virtue that precedes all these other virtues, okay? Such as courage. You can't have courage without resiliency. You can't find strength and mental toughness without being resilient. You have to learn how to overcome those. And that's what resiliency does. This is one reason why I believe extreme comforts and luxury, they're modern day diseases. Our minds and bodies and souls can only improve and grow stronger when put to the test. Because being courageous requires fear. Without fear, you can't have courage. And being just requires injustice. Without injustice, there would be no opportunities to achieve justice. And while living a fragile life, where the goal is to maximize your comfort and luxury and minimize any challenges or pain, it lacks meaning. It lacks passion. A fragile life of comfort and luxury is rooted in fear. Being scared to fail or to get hurt or be rejected. To remain safely at home watching shows or playing video games, things that don't challenge you. Where you can entertain and be distracted, but you're not growing and you're not improving. This type of life is how you atrophy in your spirit. That's why I believe we must actively push against the lure of easy comforts. To purposely break these modern habits of constantly lounging and relaxing, and instead to focus on the one virtue that prevents us from collapsing in a heap of our own pain and suffering and failures: resiliency. Okay, let's go back to the book. Here's another quote. Quote, "To be resilient is not easy, but it's not complicated. We can all do it. To get there, it's not enough to want to be resilient or to think about being resilient. We have to choose to live a resilient life. End quote. Well said. Followed by this quote. We all need resilience to live a fulfilling life. With resilience, you'll be more prepared to take on challenges, to develop your talents, skills, and abilities so that you can live with more purpose and more joy. I don't know about you, but these quotes give me the shivers. They make me want to go outside and run a marathon, to test myself, to show the world that I'm not afraid to try. And yes, no matter what new skill I'm attempting, I'm going to fail again and again and again. There's no way to avoid that. And with a resilient mindset, I desire some failure in my life. Why? Because that's how I know that I'm trying. I know that it's required for real growth and improvement. And the faster I fail, the faster I'll grow, and all the virtues to be a better version of myself, day in and day out, failure upon failure. And that was just chapter 1. It's kind of just the warm-up. So let's move through the rest of the book, and I'm going to share a few more of my favorite quotes. Okay, the next chapter in this book is entitled, Why Resilience? And right out of the gate, we're hit with this, quote, resilience is the key to a well-lived life. If you want to be happy, you need resilience. If you want to be successful, you need resilience. You need resilience because you can't have happiness, success, or anything worth having without meeting hardships along the way. End quote. Again, this is powerful, life-changing stuff, which is quickly followed up a few paragraphs later by this statement. Quote, the benefits of struggling, of being challenged, afraid, pained, confused, they're so precious that if they could be bottled, people would pay dearly for them. End quote. So not only are challenges and pain and fear things not to be avoided, but they're things we should seek. I know that statement sounds a bit silly in our modern culture and our modern society, because today it seems like everyone's avoiding pain and suffering. It seems like the best way to live, right? But according to this book and Eric Greitens, the opposite is true, and I totally agree with him wholeheartedly. Not our current fragile modern society. And this is where I want to share another quote from a different author in a different book, but it just makes the point so good. And this quote is from Boris Kralnulyuk. Hope I pronounced that right. Quote, the worst form of stress is an absence of stress, because the feeling that there is no life before death gives rise to a despairing feeling of emptiness in the face of the void. End quote. Now let's go back to this book and do another quote from Eric Greitens. Quote, if we are trapped in a life where everything's provided for us, our minds fail to grow, our relationships atrophy, and our spirits deteriorate. End quote. Next, I want to highlight a few more chapter titles in this book. That way, you can take what we've already covered and then kind of project it with the rest of the book and what it focuses on. Okay, so there's a chapter in here titled Happiness. There's one titled Habits, another one called Responsibility. Then there are chapters titled Philosophy, Practice, Pain, and then it moves on to Reflection, Friends, Mentors, Teams, Leadership, Freedom, and even near the end of the book, there's one titled Death. Again, my goal with this review is to give you just a bit of a taste on what this book, Resilience, is all about. But this book is so densely packed with wisdom, I've just scratched the surface. And in this short of a review, that's really the best I can do. With that said, when I underline passages in the books I read, I also tend to add kind of a star next to any passage that kind of stands above the rest. Here's an example of that, right here. It's sort of the best of the best. So I'll share a few more of those before I wrap up. Quote, the most common mistake people make in thinking about happiness of excellence is to focus on moments of achievement. They imagine that the mountain climber's on the summit. That's part of the happiness of excellence, a very real part. But what matters more, though, is not the happiness of being there, but the happiness of getting there. A mountain climber heads to the summit and joy meets her along the way. End quote. Okay, next starred quote. One of the greatest gulfs in life is between sounding good and doing good. We're ultimately measured by our results, by the way our actions shape the world around us. Without results, all kind of intentions in the world are just a way of entertaining ourselves. End quote. And I'll leave you with one powerful quote to ponder. Quote, "A book can teach you about resilience, but resilience itself can only be built by practice. To build resilience, we must practice it, not haphazardly, but deliberately." End quote. Okay, I'm sure by now you have a pretty good sense that I love this book. It's one of the few books I have it displayed in my office facing out, like these right here. I do this as a reminder of how important living a resilient life is. To support me in my moments of personal struggle and hardship. To bring forth the feelings of extreme gratitude and reassurance knowing the struggle is a gift, a precious opportunity to get better. It's a life experience that's precious to me so that I can learn, so that it can grow, so that I can prepare, adapt, and overcome. So if this book review and this book resonate you, then you should pick up this book first of all. But I also want to invite you to check out a program that I've built from the ground up called The Resilient Life. This is a program that helps you learn how to embrace resiliency in your own life, to challenge yourself daily, to overcome obstacles, and to add strategic backups and supplies to your life as well. Sometimes I like to call it the antidote to life's uncertainties. So if this sounds interesting to you, please take a moment to click the link in the description below to find out more. Till next time, prepare, adapt, and overcome.